It didn't start with explosions. It started with movement, helicopters lifting off one after another, carrying Marines into position, fast, precise, and highly visible. Because when thousands of troops deploy like this, it's not routine, it's preparation. And right now, that preparation is happening near one of the most sensitive regions in the world, the Persian Gulf, where every movement is tracked, every deployment is analyzed, and every signal matters. Because this isn't just about where these Marines are going, it's about what they might be preparing for. Right now, the region is operating under sustained military pressure. Naval forces are already active across the Gulf, air patrols continue, surveillance is constant, but the situation has shifted because now ground forces are being positioned rapidly. Thousands of U.S. Marines have been deployed into forward locations using helicopter insertion and amphibious support, not slowly, not gradually, but in coordinated waves. This is not just presence, it's readiness. The USS Tripoli and associated amphibious groups have brought Marine expeditionary units into the region. At the same time, additional forces, including airborne units, are being positioned nearby. This creates a layered force structure, sea, air, and now ground, all operating together. And that changes the environment, because once ground forces are positioned close to a conflict zone, the response time disappears. And when response time disappears, the margin for control becomes smaller. The escalation didn't begin with the landing. It began with the buildup, because deployments like this don't happen suddenly. They are planned, coordinated, timed, and every phase matters. At first, naval forces move into position. Carrier groups, amphibious ships, support vessels, everything aligns offshore. This is the first signal, presence. But presence alone doesn't change the situation, it prepares it. Then comes the next phase, air movement. Helicopters begin operating, transport rotations increase. Equipment is moved, personnel are positioned, and this is where things begin to accelerate, because helicopters don't operate at distance. They operate at the point of action, fast insertion, direct deployment, immediate presence, and that changes the dynamic, because now forces are not just nearby, they are inside the operational environment. This is where escalation begins, not through conflict, but through proximity, because proximity creates pressure. Iranian systems detect the movement, surveillance increases, tracking intensifies, every helicopter flight is observed, every landing zone is analyzed. Because this is not hidden, it is meant to be seen, and that visibility sends a message. But this is where things escalate further, because Marine deployments are not passive. They are designed for action, securing positions, controlling key points, responding rapidly to changing situations. And that capability introduces risk, because now any escalation can be met immediately. No delay, no repositioning, only response. Then comes the next layer, integration. Marines are not operating alone. They are supported by naval forces, by air power, by surveillance systems. This creates a complete operational structure where every domain is connected, and that increases capability. But it also increases complexity, because now multiple systems are active at once and in a confined region. That creates overlap. Then comes the critical factor, speed, because this entire deployment is built around speed, fast movement, fast positioning, fast response, and speed changes everything, because the faster forces can act. The less time there is to control escalation, and that's where the risk increases, because decisions must now be made faster, with less time and less certainty. At the same time, Iran adapts, movement patterns change, surveillance increases, defensive readiness rises, because now the situation is no longer theoretical. It is active, and that creates tension. Not through conflict, but through possibility. Because when forces are this close and this ready, the next step is always uncertain. Then comes the scenario, A situation develops a point of tension, a location that requires immediate control. And now the capability exists. Marines can deploy instantly, secure the area, control the situation. And that's where escalation becomes real, because once ground forces are used, the situation changes, not gradually, but immediately. And that's the threshold both sides are watching, because crossing it means moving from pressure to action. And once that happens, the environment does not return to what it was before. What looks like a large deployment is actually a strategic signal, because Marines are not deployed for visibility alone. They are deployed for capability, close-range capability, the ability to act where ships and aircraft cannot. This is the final layer of control. For the United States, this is about readiness, positioning forces where they can respond instantly, reducing delay, reducing uncertainty, and increasing options, because options create leverage. At the same time, this deployment sends a message, not through action, but through presence, that escalation can be met immediately. But this is where the strategy becomes complex, because Iran operates under a different approach. It applies pressure through proximity, through unpredictability, through controlled tension and marine deployment challenges that, because it removes distance and removes time, but neither side wants full conflict, so they operate carefully at the edge, applying pressure, avoiding the moment that triggers escalation, but the presence of Marines brings that moment closer. From here, the situation becomes more sensitive, because once ground forces are in position, the environment changes. One possible outcome is deterrence. The presence of Marines stabilizes the situation. No action is taken. Tension remains but controlled. This is the most stable path, but it is not permanent. Another scenario is limited operation, a targeted response, a specific mission, short, precise, but significant, because once Marines are used, the situation shifts. Then there is the risk of escalation, a close encounter, a situation that requires immediate action. And that action triggers response, because in a space like this, nothing stays isolated. And beyond that, there is expansion. What starts locally spreads regionally, because once ground forces are involved, the scale increases. Right now, all of these outcomes remain possible, but the margin for error is shrinking. The helicopters have already landed. The Marines are already in position, and the situation is already changing. Because this isn't about what has happened, it's about what can happen next. Because once forces are this close, and this ready, there is no delay, only decisions. And those decisions will be made quickly, because in this environment, speed defines everything, and the next move may come faster than anyone expects.